Well, we're moving toward completing the business for the year, and I think in a highly productive way from the point of view of the vast majority of Senate Republicans. This omnibus bill that will be on the floor provides a real dollar increase for the defense baseline and a real dollar cut for the non-defense baseline if you exclude veterans. That is absolutely critical in breaking the pattern we've had in the past when we've ended up in one of these situations where every time Republicans tried to get an increase in defense, we would in effect have to pay a ransom to the Democrats on the domestic side, wholly aside from the needs of the country. So let's step back and say, what are the real needs of the country right now? They're in the defense part of our expenditure, making sure the Defense Department can deal with the major threats coming from Russia and China, providing assistance for the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians. That's the #1 priority for the United States right now, according to most Republicans. That's sort of how we see the challenges confronting the country at the moment. So, admittedly, I'm pretty proud of the fact that with a Democratic President, a Democratic House, and a Democratic Senate, we were able to achieve, through this omnibus spending bill, essentially all of our priorities.
The 109th Support Group of the South Dakota National Guard just mobilized a few days ago to head to Iraq and Kuwait as part of the counter-ISIS mission. And unfortunately, we weren't able to have the activation deployment ceremony because the weather wouldn't permit it in South Dakota this last weekend, but we just want to wish the members of the South Dakota National Guard and this unit the very best and thank them for their service and their sacrifice and for that of their families. And also to just say, I've always said that if you don't get national security right, the rest is conversation, which is why it was so important for us to get the National Defense Authorization Bill across the finish line last week. There are so many provisions in there that are impactful when you live in a dangerous world. And if anything, the events of the last year have taught us we live in a very dangerous world. The B-21 bomber was just unveiled. That is a new bomber, a 6th-generation bomber that puts us as a country in the lead when it comes to long-range strike capability. There are only 3 countries in the world who have strategic bombers, and those are China, Russia, and the United States. Ellsworth Air Force Base in South Dakota is going to be the first home to the B-21 bomber. We're obviously very excited about that for the members, the airmen out there, for the community, for the base. No one could be more deserving of this very important mission. And of course, the Defense Authorization Bill provided a lot of the funding, not only for the continued development and build out of that aircraft, but also for all the infrastructure associated with it when it comes to Ellsworth Air Force Base. And so, again, the Defense Authorization Bill is so critically important to making sure that American men and women in uniform who are tasked with defending, protecting, ensuring the safety and security of people here in the United States and helping defend America's interests both here at home and around the world are funded, and the Defense Authorization will make sure that they have everything they need to do that job. And so I'm grateful that we got it passed last week. It shouldn't have taken this long. The Democrats always seem to delay the Defense Authorization Bill, but in the end, we got it across the finish line, and that's good for America's national security interests.
Well, I think the #1 job of the federal government is to defend the country. It's something that almost every American will admit they can't do for themselves, and almost every state will admit they can't do for themselves. I'm certainly supportive of our long commitment to authorizing how we do that. The Defense Authorization Bill, as Senator Thune pointed out, incredibly important. But the Defense Authorization Bill really doesn't do much if you don't appropriate the money. to do what the defense authorization bill says our military and defense objectives are. You know, there are many people in the Congress, both House and Senate, who will always vote for the defense authorization bill and never vote for the bill the money is in to do what the defense authorization bill says we're going to do. All of you know, after 2 decades of being at leadership conferences, House and Senate, that I've said a lot of times, we are doing this in the worst possible way, but the only thing worse than doing it in the worst possible way with this one big bill at the end would be not to do it and kick it to a new Congress that when the Congress starts won't even have a Ways and Means chairman or a budget chairman on the House side or lots of other things. This is no favor to the House if we kick this to another year, and it makes it impossible to have a chance to get the bill that they are responsible for, the 2024 bill, done in the way it needs to be done. This bill has, increases defense spending by 10%, increases non-defense spending by 5%, with 13.2% inflation since, or 13.8% inflation since President Biden became president. I think we've done a good job of holding the line on the non-defense area and trying to keep the defense area where it keeps up with the defense needs of the country. The money for Ukraine will be in this vote, and we have an obligation, our number one obligation is to defend the country in the federal government. But I also think we have and need to have an obligation to help people defend themselves and fight for their own freedom. That's in this vote this week as well, and we'll do everything I can to see that it passes.
Right before Thanksgiving, I had the opportunity to visit a food bank in southwest Iowa, very close to my hometown of Red Oak. And when I was there, went in, visited with the volunteers and the staff, and as we walked through their facility, I noticed that many of their shelves were bare. And the staff, the volunteers, they all said that this year giving has been down significantly because those that normally give, they're struggling this year, which makes it even harder for those that are just barely making ends meet. And so during this season of giving, if we could all just please remember, let's try to do a little more giving if we can and support your local food banks, your local shelters. It will make a difference for a family that is in need. So to that vein, let's remember sometimes it's better to give more than it is to receive. I'd also like to say a Merry Christmas and a Happy Hanukkah or Happy Holidays, however they may be celebrating this year, to all of those that are serving in uniform. I'm the mother and now the mother-in-law to 2 active duty service members, and especially for those that are serving abroad this year and for their families that keep the home fires burning. Let's also wish them a very happy and prosperous new year.
We talked about getting their priorities. Considering the public criticism of how the administration handled Afghanistan, we've seen that there was a provision for the Afghanistan resettlement. That's not in this bill. What happened with that? Why was that not in there? And why was that not?
Well, it is an important issue, but there were many things that one could argue were important that didn't make it into the bill. When you end up in a situation like we're ending up in, as a result of the Democratic leaders' resistance to passing any individual appropriation bills, you end up with a massive bill at the end. And there were many worthwhile things that simply didn't make it. And that ought to be addressed, and I think it's important.
You said in a statement yesterday that the entire nation knows who's responsible for January 6th. Given that, do you regret your vote in quitting Donald Trump?
Look, we were all here that day. I think we're pretty aware of what happened.
Given especially his criticisms about how Senate Republicans have handled these negotiations, do you support Kevin McCarthy to be the Speaker of the House?
Absolutely. I'm pulling for Kevin. I hope he makes it.
On permitting reform, you called Joe Manchin's permitting reform, permitting in aid only. Do you have any confidence that Democrats will support stronger permitting reform in the next Congress and will the work of the Republican House on this?
Honestly, not really. We've been, this is a huge problem. It's the reason so many projects in this country take forever. And with the massive inflation that we're experiencing, take the infrastructure bill, for example, which I enthusiastically supported. I just wonder how much it'll buy with the passage of time and all the slowdowns in permitting that will inevitably occur during the process. I think real permitting reform is really important, and hopefully there's an opportunity to go forward. Manchin's bill didn't actually achieve it, unfortunately.
Okay, good afternoon. It's almost evening. I'm sorry I'm late. We had a long, nice caucus. Okay, and I'm glad to be joined by Senators Murray, Stabenow, and our great friend and leader, Senator Durbin came, and Senator Durbin, but our great friend and leader, Senator Leahy. Well, as everyone saw last night and early this morning, things are moving in the right direction. Chairman Leahy and Ranking Member Shelby released a long-sought, bipartisan, bicameral omnibus appropriations bill at 1:30 a.m. this morning for fiscal year 2023. And after a lot of hard work, this package represents an aggressive and essential investment in American families, American workers, and in our national defense. It will give our troops a raise, it'll make health care more affordable for millions, and it fulfills the promise Democrats made to defend democracy at home and abroad. I particularly want to thank Chairman Leahy and Ranking Shelby for working on this omnibus for months. The bill's a fitting tribute to send off our two esteemed appropriators. If the omnibus goes down as their final legislative contribution as senators, then I say bravo, well done, thank you. The sooner we pass the omnibus, the better, and I'm hopeful no senator will stand in the way of finishing our work before Friday. It's too important to the American people. As you know, there's a big storm coming in the middle of the country on Thursday and Friday, so we'd like to finish this as soon as possible. But we must finish it, of course, by Friday when the government funding expires. Now let's turn to the omnibus itself. The bill's overflowing with good news. One of the most important pieces of this bill is the Electoral Count Act, which will not just reaffirm Democrats' commitment to passing democracy reforms, but it's an important step to preserve our democracy in generations to come. The Electoral College process was flawed, and this makes some very significant corrections. I said months ago we would do everything we could to pass this bill, and now we're following through. The omnibus is going to fill our promise to stand with Ukraine, with our friends in Ukraine, with billions more in emergency economics. On the home front, the omnibus is aggressive, generous, and far-reaching in health care, making it more affordable and more expansive. Patty's going to talk about this, I believe, but people have not followed the amazing changes. This was a really great thing to improve health care of the American people, particularly working-class people, poorer people. Including that every child in America who qualifies for Medicaid or CHIP will be guaranteed at least 1 year of continuous health coverage. A lot of the kids, when they turned 19, their health coverage changed. They didn't have continuous coverage for a year, and it got dropped. That was a terrible thing. It was one of our big goals. We will, for the first time, permanently extend a policy from the American Rescue Plan that gives states a full year of postpartum coverage. We've been trying to get that for a long time. That's for moms on Medicaid and CHIP. The omnibus represents also a new offensive battle in the mental health crisis. I really fought hard, along with Senator Stabenow, who will talk about it, to make sure this package will allow seniors to get Medicare coverage for counseling, including funding to train new psychiatrists, create mental health mobile units, instruct Medicare to cover outpatient mental health. We're going to attack the opioid crisis head-on by expanding options for medication-assisted treatment, also make never-before-seen investments in suicide prevention, maternal mental health, pediatric mental health. We're going to make health care more accessible than ever, assuring that Medicare beneficiaries can use telehealth through 2024. This is so important in rural areas. I go to my upstate rural hospitals, and this is their number-one ask. We're also making health care more accessible we're also increasing support for rural and low-income hospitals. We're going to keep our promise to veterans. Many of the things that we voted on this summer, we said we had to fund, and we're doing it. We're funding the PACT Act. For manufacturing and science, we secure our first major down payment in tech hubs that we authorized in the CHIPS bill. Largest dollar increase for National Science Foundation ever, including securing a surge of funds for the new Technology Directorate and the STEM workforce. Combined with the investments in the Department of Energy and Commerce, we provide billions with a B to support universities, national labs, manufacturers, entrepreneurs. So I'm talking for a while, there's a lot to celebrate. There's more. Can't stop talking about it because it's so good. We've largest increase in Pell Grants over a decade, $500, it's now $7,395. The ladder up, going to college, for poor kids, working kids, gets a little bit easier, okay? We secured billions in homeless assistance grants, billions for rural housing services, over $1 billion for home investment partnership programs, $1 billion for housing in the elderly, $2 billion for child care access. So, it doesn't include everything we wanted. McConnell blocked a lot of things I cared about, like 9/11 health. He just said no at the end, but it's a big step. The bill is a big step in the right direction. From start to finish, the Omnibus is made by and for the American people. We got to get it done by Friday. I want to thank my colleagues who work relentlessly to put this piece of legislation together. Thank you to my colleagues. We're going to finish the bill very soon. It's going to be a big step forward for America. Senator Leahy.
Thank you, Leader. I totally agree with everything the Leader has said. You know, we started working on this last summer. I've encouraged as many senators of both parties to come and work with us, talk with us, see what we can do. I'm glad that so many did. And I'm glad that at the end, some in the other party did too. I think they know that there are things in here that they've always said back home they want. But now they have a chance to vote for it or vote against it. Everybody's been for the PACT Act to care for our veterans. Well, then show that. The Omnibus bill does that. You're either for it or against it. The CHIPS Act, I'm for that. I was proud to be for it. I came out of the hospital to sign the bill, the CHIPS Act. I was that proud of it. It's here. Vote for it. The infrastructure law, I don't know how anybody could be against that. It's in here. Show by your vote how you are. Families dealing with the cost of heating, child care, college, housing. So many of the things the Leader mentioned are in there. If you want to fund the troops and their families, vote for this bill. If I spent a career here in trying to protect victims of domestic violence, both adult and child, vote for this bill. The money's in there. I mean, I could go into a whole lot, but let me look at the people that worked on it. Senator Patty Murray is going to be the next chair of the Senate Appropriations Committee. She's come into this thing line by line, knowing exactly what it does. And she has encouraged and brought together others to support it. Senator Stabenow, who's here, is going to have more of a voice of rural America than any of us, as well as large states like hers. She has helped us craft each part of it. The thing I'm saying is that for weeks and weeks, actually months and months, way into the evening, weekends and all, senators came together to help, point by point by point. We didn't call press conferences. We didn't do a whole lot of it. We just did the work. Now, I think we have a product we can all be proud of. We can all vote for it. Somebody said to me, oh, I didn't get everything I wanted. I said, you know, I think some people only got 95% of what they wanted. I've been here 48 years. I'd call that a pretty darn good victory. And this is a good bill. Thank you.
Senator Leahy got 2 standing ovations, one when he was present and one when he wasn't at our caucus lunch today. Senator Durbin.
Many of your editors and close friends have asked that before you return, you ask how many Article 3 judges have been approved for lifetime appointments by this Congress. The definitive answer today, authoritative answer, is 97. 97. 126 were approved by committee. So we have another 29 which could be called even in the closing minutes if there's an agreement on the floor. But we're proud of the 97. In comparison, in the first 2 years of my friend Barack Obama's presidency, 43. The first 2 years of the Trump presidency, 85. So we've done an extraordinary job in the Judiciary Committee with an evenly split committee. And it called for bipartisan cooperation many times. And we've been able to bring that cooperation to the floor because we have diversity in the ranks of these new judges, and every single one of these judges was judged well qualified by the American Bar Association. That was not the case during the last 4 years. There's more work to be done when it comes to the judges who are held over. We'll do our best to move on it in an expeditious way. One last point I want to make to you, this omnibus bill has many, many, many provisions. There's one in particular that I'm proud of that Senator Bill Cassidy and I put together. Have you ever bought anything on the internet? I'll bet you have. What's the likelihood that what you bought was stolen or counterfeit? Unfortunately, it's a very high likelihood. Now we're going to have disclosure of the actual sellers on the internet. This is at the request of retailers across America who were being looted and stolen from, and their products were sold on the internet. Now finally, we're going to have a requirement of disclosure of those sellers' identities so we can catch those that are fencing stolen goods or selling counterfeit goods. It's just one of the features of an omnibus bill that has many good features.
Senator Murray, as I mentioned, did an amazing job on health care that most folks don't know about, so please pay careful attention.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Leader. Thank you to all of you. And, you know, this end-of-the-year funding deal package is a very big deal. Funding the government, what does that really mean? Well, for students who are struggling to cover tuition or rent, it means making ends meet just got a little bit easier. We worked with our Republican colleagues to increase the Pell Grants by $500. That is the biggest increase in a decade. For workers who are fighting for a safe workplace, better benefits, and the ability to form a union, it means better protection for their rights because we included a long overdue funding increase for the National Labor Relations Board. For parents who are struggling to find quality, affordable child care, it means help is on the way. We increased child care funding by a third with a bipartisan $1.85 billion increase for our federal child care program. It's not everything we wanted, but believe me, you've heard me talk about child care many times, but this is a badly needed lifeline for providers who are struggling to stay open and parents who are trying to find affordable child care and keep their heads above water. Democrats understand how we spend these dollars. That is a reflection of our values, which is why we fought for these investments, along with increases in funding for everything from public schools, mental health, public health systems, workforce development and apprenticeships, substance use disorder prevention and treatment services, and a lot more. I'm especially proud that in addition to the funding, we were able to include many of the bipartisan bills that my colleagues and I on the Help Committee negotiated. The Bipartisan Prevent Pandemics Act to overhaul and strengthen our pandemic preparedness efforts and response, from strengthening our supply chains to setting up a mission control center at the White House, is in this package. A bipartisan FDA reform package to put patients over companies' bottom lines, and for the first time ever, to empower FDA to finally conduct oversight of cosmetics. We have a bipartisan mental health and substance use disorder package in this that supports states as they tackle fentanyl and a worsening opioid crisis. It strengthens the new 988 suicide lifeline and provides resources to support youth and maternal mental health. And it includes a bipartisan retirement savings bill with a set of reforms to expand access to retirement plans and help more families save for a rainy day. Now, I just said bipartisan a lot, and that's because we are getting a lot done, because we sat down to really negotiate these issues like families sent us here to do, because we focused on fighting these crises, not fighting each other. I hope we can now get this across the finish line as soon as possible, and that we continue this approach as we work to tackle the urgent challenges that our nation is facing. And I should note, there is one more key reason this bill is so strong. Senator Leahy. Let me just say, he's been a champion for families as Appropriations Chair. On days like this, announcing important progress like this, it is clearer than ever how much we will miss him. Thank you.
And Senator Stabenow really, against all odds, got made permanent the idea of feeding poor children summer nutrition. In the past, when school ended, these kids were down and out.
Thank you. Well, first of all, as we've said a lot of times, it's been a busy 2 years. We've gotten an awful lot done in the last 2 years, and now today you're hearing about a really significant bill that we will be ending the year with, the Omnibus, and all that has gone with that. We've sent out today a summary of what we have done in the last 2 years as Democrats, and it didn't even include what we're talking about today in terms of the Omnibus. So this is very, very significant. And basically what the belief we've had is that the American people deserve a government that works to lower their costs and help businesses create good paying jobs and make our community safer. And that's really the context in which we have been focused, and we've been doing that. Let me just stress again that we're standing up to Big Pharma to bring down prescription drug costs, and in just 12 days, 3.2 million people on Medicare who use insulin will have their insulin capped at $35 a month. This literally is going to save people money and save lives, and we're just 12 days away. We've lowered health care premiums, and thanks to so many actions that we've already taken, plus what we are doing now, more Americans have affordable health insurance than at any other time in our country's history. More people have affordable health insurance. This is a big deal. We've been standing up to big oil to reduce the cost of filling up your gas tank and heating your home. We've helped businesses create over 10.5 million new jobs in the last 2 years, and we've made communities safer, whether it's getting shots in arms, funding our local police and fire departments, or making historic investments in mental health. And as Senator Schumer said, part of this now is a major effort that we've been able to do through the Finance Committee as a part of this. I want to thank Senator Daines, my partner on the Health Subcommittee, for the work we've done on mental health workforce. We've done great investments in new funding of community services, but we need the people. We need the social workers. We need the therapists. We need the psychiatrists to be available to make those services actually happen. And there are major steps in this bill to do that. And I would finally say that I want to thank Senator Bozeman for being my partner on the Agriculture and Nutrition Committee to put into law a commitment to feed low-income children in the summer, and to have that be something that is ongoing. It's something I think we should all feel very proud about in terms of an American value. We worked very hard for the people of our country. We've gotten a lot done, but frankly, we're just getting started. So happy holidays, and on to 2023.
Thank you. Yes.
Can you just give us an update on the amendment situation, but more importantly, veterans groups are angry that the Afghan Adjustment Act is left out of this due to GOP objections. Will you try to add it as an amendment?
Okay, look, we're working to get this bill done as quickly as we can. We have time deadlines, and we'll see how that all works through. But we have to get it done and get it done quickly. On the Afghan refugees, it was a very high priority. It had some good Republican support, but unfortunately the Republican leadership blocked it. These are people who risk their lives for our soldiers and for our country, and we should be rewarded. In the past, in previous engagements, we always did this and allowed them all their rights. But we didn't do it this time. We're going to keep fighting for it.
How is it in a functional process to drop a 4,100-page bill this morning, expect to vote on it tomorrow? Most of Congress hasn't had a chance to review this.
Look, the bill has been carefully worked on by the Appropriations Committee for a very, very long time. Most of the provisions of the bill were well known weeks and weeks and weeks in advance. And getting this bill done for the American people, which really matters, is the most important thing. Yes?
Did Democrats miss an opportunity to
Our view is it should be done in a bipartisan way, and we will be working in the next Congress to get that done.
Given Kevin McCarthy's strong opposition to this bill, do you see this as perhaps the last omnibus of President Biden's first term? And how do you expect to deal with government funding and the government?
Look, I think that it's too early to judge what's going to happen in the House. There's so much discombobulation and disunity on different sides of the Republican caucus. We're going to, as I've mentioned before, we're going to work very hard to work with Republicans to get things done. We did, of the big 6 bills this year in a 50-50 Senate, 5 were bipartisan. Last year, one of the biggest bills, the BIF bill, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, which now has some other initials. I think they keep changing these initials. It's not so. IIJA, is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called. But in any case, the BIF bipartisan bill was done that way. And we're going to keep working to get something done in a bipartisan way. Yes.
Can you talk about your relationship, to the degree that one exists, with Kevin McCarthy? You talk about this misconfabulation in the House of Representatives. You're going to be the Senate Majority Leader. He might be the...
Look, I've always gotten along with Kevin McCarthy. We don't agree on a whole lot of issues, but I try to work with anyone I can to get things done for the American people. Yes, yes. Yes. Yeah, look, at the very end of the day, we had very good bipartisan support. We had hoped to get it done. I worked for months with different Republicans led by Senator Daines of Montana. But at the last minute, both Senators Toomey and McConnell opposed it. It is bipartisan. It has the support of many different groups. We're going to go back at it next year. Thank you, everybody.